Welcome to the NASCAR Field Filler Podcast, where you can get the latest results, fantasy picks, and news every week in the NASCAR racing world. We just got one more spot left to fill, so let's give it to our host. Here he is, Vanilla Wafers. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the back of the field. This is Vanilla Wafers, and thank you for tuning in to the Field Filler Podcast. Hope you guys had yourselves a great weekend as we just got done with New Hampshire Motor Speedway, and it was exactly what I thought it was going to be. It was definitely a wild card race. You had multiple contenders for the victory. Most of those contenders, however, were drivers who were yet to get their first victory in the 2022 season, so that just means we are now up to 14 different winners in the Cup Series. It's unbelievable that we could potentially have a driver like Ryan Blaney, Kevin Harvick, or Martin Truex Jr. miss it out because they don't get a victory in the regular season. Or potentially someone does not make it in because they do have a victory, but not enough points. It's unbelievable how this season has been. It's been a lot of fun, and so is the race at New Hampshire. Now, I'm going a little bit ahead right now. I know that. We got two races to cover on here, including the Xfinity Series race that happened on Saturday. But still, a lot of excitement here this weekend, a lot of fun racing, and we're going to dive into it. We're going to look at the biggest takeaways from this weekend, some of the ups, some of the downs, and some of the things we're going to have to think about going through the rest of the 2022 season, because there was definitely some big moments from each race regarding drivers, regarding teams. So without further ado, let's dive into first the Saturday race, the 18th race of the 2022 season for the Xfinity Series. Let's dive into the final results for the annual Crayon 200. Alright, so a few statistics before we dive into the main results. We had a total of 39 cars enter into this race. Only one car missed the race, and it was Mike Harmon's team, the number 47 car, with a driver by the name of Bobby McCarty. I don't think I've seen him around the Xfinity Series in the past that much. This may have been his debut race if he was able to make it in. Unfortunately, he was not able to. We had 9 cautions for 56 laps, so about 25% of the race was ran under caution, and 15 lead changes amongst 10 different drivers. The winner in the end, though, leading 47 laps, finishing 9th and 6th in the stages. He is with JR Motorsports, and it is the number 7 of Justin Allgaier, collecting another victory here in the 2022 season. He is your winner of the Crayon 200, the 18th race of the 2022 season. Finishing second, we have the number 18 of Trevor Bayne. Finishing third was the number 68 of Brandon Brown. Good finish for him. Followed by the number 51 of Jeremy Clements. Then we got the top finishing rookie, the number 2 of Sheldon Creed. Finishing 6th, we have the number 48 of Ty Dillon. Finishing 7th was the number 21 of Austin Hill. Finishing 8th, a phenomenal performance by the number 34 of Kyle Weatherman. Finishing 9th was the number 91 of Mason Massey. And then rounding out the top 10, we have the number 4 of Bailey Curry. Some noticeable drivers we need to mention who finished outside the top 10. How about David Starr in the 08 finishing 11th, and Joe Graff Jr., his teammate, finishing 12th right behind him. Good finishes for that team. Moving down, we got AJ Allmendinger finishing 20th overall in this race, with Ty Gibbs in the number 54 right behind him in 21st. And then moving down, we got William Byron out due to electrical issues on lap number 163. He is credited with the 26th position. Then we got Brandon Jones, the number 19, finishing 28th. He was out due to an accident on lap 142 is when he went to the garage area. Josh Berry, the pole sitter, finishes 31st right behind him, out by lap number 27, also due to an accident. And then you got Daniel Hemrick, last year's champion, finishing 35th. He was out on lap 105. And then the two biggest ones, the number 10 of Landon Castle and the number 9 of Noah Gragson, may have finished on the lead lap, but unfortunately for them, they were DQ'd after they saw that their cars were too low in both the front and the back, so they were DQ credited with the 37th and 38th position. And that's your final results here for the Crayon 200 at New Hampshire Motor Speedway. This race was hands down one of the craziest races I have ever seen at New Hampshire Motor Speedway, and if it's not that, then it's one of the most craziest races in the Xfinity Series, because holy cow, you got almost everything you could have imagined in this race. You had underdogs competing up front. You had wrecks all over the place. You had rivalry starting to spawn on the racetrack. You had confrontation after the race. You had lovable drivers up front. You had most hated drivers up front. You basically had everything you wanted in a race. It was absolutely crazy. I mean, you guys could probably already figure out just by that top 10 alone that it was a crazy race because you had the likes of Brandon Brown, Jeremy Clements, drivers who do really good in the Xfinity Series, but not top 5 good. I mean, it was impressive. And then Kyle Weatherman, Mason Massey, Bailey Curry, David Starr, Joe Graff Jr. finishing 8th through 12th. I mean, it was insane. What happened to all the other drivers? Well, just New Hampshire craziness. There's just no other way to describe it. You had Ty Gibbs early in the race that was competing up front, and then he ran into some problems. AJ Allmendinger was starting to run up front, and then he made heavy contact with the number 36 of Alex LeBay near the middle of the race. That put him out of contention. William Byron won one of the stages, but unfortunately he was out due to electrical issues near the end. Ryan Sieg, he won stage 1. But he got caught up in one of the craziest accidents I've seen in New Hampshire in a very, very long time. It almost reminded me of the 2008 incident at Michigan with Casey Mears, and I do believe it was Sam Hornish Jr., where he was basically stopped on the racetrack, and then you had Jeb Burton come out of nowhere and just slam into the back end of him. Luckily for them, he did not go over. He still stayed on his wheels. But my goodness, just a crazy wreck for a 1-mile racetrack. And then the controversy with Landon Castle and Noah Gragson. As you guys are aware, they did finish 3rd and 4th when the race was all said and done. But unfortunately for these drivers, when they went through post-race inspection, I do believe Landon Castle's the front end of his car was too high. And then for Noah Gragson, the back end of his car was too high. And JR Motorsports has already made the announcement that they will not be appealing. Real shame, because this was probably one of Landon Castle's best races he ever had, and unfortunately it's just going to be painted as, oh, he had a car that was illegal, so obviously he had a good race in this one. Just an absolute bummer there, but it is what it is. I mean, you got to follow the rules. If not, you're going to be credited with the second to last and last position and get a whole whopping 1 point towards the regular season standings. So that's what happened to those two drivers, and unfortunately it doesn't look like any appeals are going to happen for these two, so they're stuck with that 37th and 38th position, even though both those drivers put a hell of a race on. I mean, we already talked about Landon Castle on how he was running up front, led 17 laps in this race, and was definitely one of the guys to beat. But even Noah Gragson put on one hell of a show for the fans here in this race, because at one point he was making contact and creating a rivalry brewing back up again with the number 11 of Daniel Hemrick. I'm sure you guys remember last year where they got into a fist fight at one of the intermediate tracks. I do believe it was Texas. If it wasn't Texas, maybe Atlanta. I could have that wrong, but I feel like it was a 1.5 intermediate track. Either way, so these guys didn't really like each other. Then we get the announcement that they're going to be sharing the number 16 ride. It's like, oh, well, that'll be interesting. And now they make contact again in a race in the middle of the regular season. So we'll have to keep an eye on that, because these drivers are already showing once again that they're not the biggest fans of each other. So Noah Gragson makes another enemy out on the racetrack. Well, maybe not another enemy. He just remade an enemy once again. So he put on one crazy show, but unfortunately it doesn't mean anything because, like I said, his car was too high in one end in post-race inspection, and he gets sent to the back of the field. Let's talk about Justin Allgaier. Justin Allgaier, it wasn't like this race was handed to him. He definitely had a well-performing car in this race. For him, it mostly just went down with consistency. You'd have drivers come and go this entire race. He was someone who stayed up front the entire time, and he was able to work that into his favor and collect his 3rd victory in the last 7 races. Justin Allgaier is on absolute fire right now in that number 7 machine, and he is looking to be the top competitor for the championship here in the 2022 season. Right behind him, Trevor Bayne running a part-time schedule. Man, he's just doing everything he can to get that victory. Is not able to do so here in this race. Even though he was very close multiple times, he was the strongest car at one point near the beginning. Just crazy. Absolutely crazy for Trevor Bayne, but unfortunately, this comes up a little bit short. Overall, you just got to watch the highlights in this race. You absolutely got to watch the highlights. I mean, everything happened. Everything happened. That's all I can really say, because, like I said, let's do a quick recap. You had some drivers here finish in the top 10 that you don't usually see in the top 10 unless it's like a super speedway race. Brandon Brown in 3rd, Jeremy Clements in 4th, Kyle Weatherman in 8th, Mason Massey in 9th, and Bailey Curry in 10th. You also had drivers who had dominating performances finish near the back due to multiple problems. Ty Gibbs finished 4 laps down, even though he led 49 laps. William Byron out due to electrical issues, even though he won the second second stage. Josh Berry, who was the pole sitter, gets into an accident. Ryan Sieg wins stage 1. He gets into an accident. Daniel Hemrick leads a few laps, gets into an accident. And then 2 drivers get disqualified when they also led laps. Just unbelievable race. I think this goes down as one of the best races in the 2022 season for the Xfinity Series. I mean, New Hampshire is a wild card race for the Cup Series, but man, this race was just a wild card altogether. Now let's move on to the main event. It's going to be really hard to top that one, but we still had a really good race here this Sunday. So without further ado, let's dive into it. This is the final results for the AM Better 301. Alrighty, so in this race, we only had the charter cars enter into this race, so we only had 36 on the entry list, and we had a total of 9 cautions for 52 laps. A little bit similar to the Xfinity Series race. However, we had 300 laps in this one compared to 200 laps in that one. And then we had 8 lead changes among 7 different drivers. At first, it looked like a driver who got the pole and won both stages was going to absolutely dominate this race, but it was his teammate that wound up in victory lane. I'm talking about the number 20 of Christopher Bell gets his second win in the Cup Series, first win in the 2022 season, and he is your 14th winner here in the 2022 regular season. Finishing second, we had the number 9 of Chase Elliott, and the third spot was the number 23 of Bubba Wallace. Great run for him, by the way. Finishing fourth was the number 19 of Martin Truex Jr., who won both stages and led 172 laps. Finishing fifth, we had the number 4 of Kevin Harvick. Finishing sixth was the number 11 of Denny Hamlin. Finishing seventh, a great run for the number 6 of Brad Keselowski. Finishing eighth was the number 1 of Ross Chastain. Ninth was the number 99 of Daniel Suarez. And rounding out the top 10, we had the number 45 of Kurt Busch. Finishing 11th, we had the number 24 of William Byron. 12th was the number 18 of Kyle Busch. Finishing 13th was the top finishing rookie, the number 2 of Austin Cindric. Finishing 14th was last year's champion, the number 5 of Kyle Larson. Finishing 15th was number 14 of Chase Briscoe. 16th, the number 16 of AJ Allmendinger. 17th, the number 17 of Chris Buescher. 18th, the number 12 of Ryan Blaney. 19th, the number 43 of Eric Jones. And then rounding up the top 20, we had the number 31 of Justin Haley. Some notable drivers who finished outside the top 20 that we should mention. Finishing 21st was the number 8 of Tyler Reddick. In the 24th spot was the number 22 of Joey Logano. Then in the 28th spot, we had the number 34 of Michael McDowell. Eric Almirola, unfortunately, has some mechanical issues. He gets back on the racetrack, but he finishes 19 laps down and is credited with the 31st position. Alex Bowman gets caught up in an early race accident all the way back on lap number 4, and he finishes 35th. And rounding out the field was the number 78 of BJ MacLeod, who was also in that accident, out by lap number 4 in this race. And that is your final results here for the AM Better 301 here at New Hampshire Motor Speedway. First things first, big congrats to Christopher Bell. I thought that he was going to do really good in this race. I really did think, though, that his teammate, Martin Truex Jr., was going to seal the deal. He was definitely the best driver here in this race. But unfortunately, that team just was not able to be up front when it mattered the most, and Christopher Bell was able to capitalize on that. A team that was at first a top 10 car, but slowly but surely made adjustments, and Christopher Bell shows why this is one of his best racetracks. He won his last 2 races in the Xfinity Series at New Hampshire. He was able to win both of those. He finished second last year, and if they had an extra 7 laps before the sun went down, he would have probably won that race as well. And now he finally gets his victory, so just a phenomenal performance for that number 20 machine of Christopher Bell. He locks himself into the playoffs unless we get 3 more winners, and then we got a different story to talk about here. But as of right now, he is locked in due to that victory. But another person I got to give a shout out to is definitely Martin Truex Jr. I mean, just a phenomenal run. Now he's showing everybody that he is still a contender here in the Cup Series. I think a lot of people were a little worried how much he was struggling at the beginning of the season. Now here towards the middle of the season, since his contract extension, he has been proving at every single race he's been a top competitor. And I can't believe he did not get the victory in this one. I thought he absolutely had it. Won both stages, led almost 2/3 of this race. Just what a shame that he was not able to be up front when it mattered the most. And only a top 5 finish. That's a definite heartbreak that this team has to bounce back from and try to get their first win of the 2022 season here in the regular season, because at this point, it looks like you're going to have to win to get in, and he doesn't have that victory yet. but if he keeps running the way he has been, he'll wind up in victory lane. Kevin Harvick right behind him had a really good run here. Believe it or not, though, did not lead a single lap in this race. Just proving once again that Stewart-Haas Racing still not at the same level as these top 3 other teams, more specifically Joe Gibbs Racing, as well as Penske and Rick Hendrick. You can even throw Trackhouse Racing in front of him at this point. It's just so weird at this point, just to see them struggling this much and not hardly leading any laps. Yeah, you had Chase Briscoe win the race at Phoenix, but that's like they've been their only shining moment here. It's almost like the same thing as last year, where their only shining moment was this racetrack. Well, maybe now it was Phoenix, and my goodness, I hope to see them bounce back, but right now they're not showing it. They're in the likes of, I wouldn't say nearly as far back as RFK Racing, but you can definitely tell that they're a step back from these top 4 other teams going for victories every single weekend. So another tough break. Even though it's a top 5, I feel like they should have done a little bit better with that number 4 machine. A great finish for the number 6 of Brad Keselowski, although I must admit that whole incident between him and Austin Dillon was quite interesting in this race, as during one of the cautions, Austin Dillon all of a sudden turned straight right into the number 6 of Brad Keselowski, and nobody understands why. Brad Keselowski was clearly frustrated. I mean, I don't blame him for being frustrated. He literally got smacked for no reason. And even Austin Dillon's spotter was just very confused by that incident. We still do not know to this very moment if if there was a reason behind that. So that is the biggest mystery. Maybe we'll find out about it if we watch Life in the Fast Lane on the USA Network. Austin Dillon will explain that whole incident. But I don't really think so, because that was just a very odd situation. But still, Brad Keselowski was able to manage to finish in the 7th position, probably his best finish this year, that number 6 machine. Denny Hamlin and Ross Chastain, they ran close to each other the entire race. Surprising that they didn't take each other out in this race. They were very close. They were racing each other extremely hard. I don't think anyone was really shocked by that. But this is obviously the biggest rivalry going on in the Cup Series, and I'm absolutely enjoying it because Ross Chastain is such an aggressive driver, and Denny Hamlin's a super aggressive driver. So to see him duke it out is absolutely great. Also, someone who ran really good in this race that I did not expect was the number 45 of Kurt Busch. 23:11 absolutely shocked me. I did not think that they were going to be even close competitors in this race. And bam, they both finished in the top 10. They both got a bunch of stage points. Kurt Busch got 36 points, and Bubba Wallace got 44 points. So great run for those guys. If you guys didn't listen to me and threw in 23:11, good job to you guys. You guys saw something that I did not. Apparently, those Toyotas just had this whole track figured out. Everyone except the number 18 of Kyle Busch. Kyle Busch, once again, runs into some more bad luck and has a really, really rough finish, despite the fact that he finished 12th in this race. It was just a rough race. You were just watching Kyle Busch, and you were just like, man, what is going on with that number 18 team right now? They should not be running back here. They should be right up there with Martin Truex Jr., right up there with Christopher Bell, and they're just not doing that right now. It almost feels like Denny Hamlin's bad luck got moved on over to Kyle Busch, and now Kyle Busch is struggling like crazy. I guess only 3 cars can be successful at Joe Gibbs Racing. I don't know what it is, but another tough race for Kyle Busch. And maybe, just maybe, all these talks about where he's going in the 2023 season may be starting to get to him. And I did not think that that was going to be possible. I'm like, it's Kyle Busch. He's been in so many controversies and had so much over his head that it would be crazy to think that this story would be different from all the others and would actually start affecting him. But it almost feels like it is at this point. We'll have to keep seeing how he does here through the summer stretch, see if he makes any improvements. But man, just absolutely crazy to see the 18 car with this much bad luck and Kyle Busch struggling this bad here in the middle of the season. Some other disappointers in this race, definitely the number 12 of Ryan Blaney. I remember earlier this week, Ryan Blaney was chosen to be the driver to beat. Like, he was the odds-on favorite to win this race. And he didn't lead a lap. He didn't even score a stage point. And he ran around the 14th to 18th position, and that's where he finished. Just a really, really rough run for him. And honestly, Penske Racing actually struggled in this race. Yeah, Joey Logano was running up front in the second stage, but then unfortunately just lost a lot of speed near the end and then went down pit road with just a couple laps left to go. just not a good finish for all these guys. I mean, the best finisher was Austin Cindric in the number 2 machine, finishing 13th. But the only one to score stage points was Joey Logano, and he finished the worst out of the team. So once again, another bad race for this team. They'll recover. They'll definitely recover. But just an absolute bummer when you thought people like Joey Logano and Ryan Blaney were going to be running up front, and they did the exact opposite. Yeah, affected quite a few fantasy teams here this weekend, and just a head-scratcher on what was going on there with Team Penske. Also, if you were banking on the big wild cards such as Michael McDowell, Eric Almirola, or even Cole Custer, unfortunately, they let you down in this race. Unfortunately for Eric Almirola, I'm just not sure what exactly happened to him. I know he suffered from some type of mechanical problem. I can't pinpoint what it was, but I mean, he was running in the top 10. I don't think he was a car to beat in this race by any means, but at least he was going to get a solid top 10. And then that happened and just took his chances out. So, bummer for a lot of people who put him on your fantasy team. I know I did. I was trying to save up some other drivers, and it kind of bit me in the butt. Cole Custer, a lot of people thought a positive race for him, and at one point he was running near the front, but unfortunately pit strategies did not work in his favor, and Michael McDowell just never had a speed at all. Michael McDowell was just a big bummer in this race, and a lot of people say, man, Front Row Motorsports is a small team, they shouldn't be running up front. Well, unfortunately in this race, they did show that they were a super small team, and they couldn't even run in the top 20. So, big bummer for Michael McDowell, and a big bummer for the 4 drivers who got taken out on lap number 4. That was unbelievable just to see that big of an accident that early in the race, and it was all caused due to Justin Haley cutting down, trying to pass Chase Briscoe, and he didn't realize that the 42 car was there, which made contact with the 48 machine, and also took out the 77 and the 78. I mean, BJ MacLeod's team cannot catch a break. I mean, yeah, they're not a strong team, but they should not be parking this many races into the season. I mean, just getting caught up in so many incidents that are not their fault, and this was another example of it. And it was all caused just to kind of a stupid move at an early part of the race. I'm not sure what was going on there with Justin Haley and his spotter, but clearly the miscommunication there, and it really affected some mid-tier drivers who were trying to look for a good race, especially for Ty Dillon. Ty Dillon gets the announcement that he's not returning to Petty GMS Racing. He gets into kind of a controversial talk with Austin Hill on pit lane. I don't think it was controversial. I think I meant to say more confrontational, because they were definitely looking very upset with each other, and then this happens to him. I mean, can Ty Dillon catch a break right now or no? I mean, man, when it rains, it pours. Good country reference right there, but not a country reference that Ty Dillon wanted to hear, because he finishes 33rd, a driver who's been very consistent, staying out of trouble. Now he can do nothing but stay in trouble, getting caught up in accidents left and right. As far as the race went, for the first 2 stages, it was meh. I mean, there was passing going on here and there, but Martin Truex Jr. was definitely dominating. But the final stage was a lot of fun, till about, I'd say, 25 laps to go. Lots of passing for the lead. I mean, at one point, it was a 4-way battle between Chase Elliott, Christopher Bell, Joey Logano, and I think you can even put Kevin Harvick in that mix. Bo Wallace was in that mix as well throughout the entire race. It was a lot of fun. Oh, and Kurt Busch. I'm sorry, I forgot about Kurt Busch. He actually led 40 laps in this race and right near the front. So, again, a lot of drivers had a lot of chances to win this race, and they were putting on one heck of a show there near the very end. And I did not think Chase Elliott was going to run up front and run really good in this race, but he did. He scored 50 points, so Chase Elliott is just on fire right now. He's the new Ross Chastain during the summer stretch, so good run for him. But it was a good race at the end. Yes, things may have got a little bit spread out in the final 30 laps, since the last caution came around lap 209, so we ran 92 laps under green, which means it's bound to stretch out a little bit, but still, they put on a great race. Christopher Bell, Chase Elliott, Kurt Busch, all those guys were really close to each other there near the end with around 50 to 40 laps to go. So at least we got to see that. So the racing was really good there. I think the only thing that I have to give the race a little bit slack on is the fact that the first half of the race was definitely a struggle to get through. Yeah, we did have quite a few cautions, but it almost felt like a one-lane racetrack, and honestly, when it comes to a one-lane racetrack, it's either going to be a really good race like Bristol's old format, or it's going to be a really boring race like Texas All-Star Race. So luckily, the track really picked up at the end when it mattered the most. And also another critique I have to get, this is not really due to the racing, but I can't believe it when I saw it, but New Hampshire Motor Speedway was offering NFTs for this race. NFTs. For those who do not know, those are non-fungible tokens that you can get online. Most people may know of the Bored Apes, those little cartoon apes that everyone sees is popping up everywhere, or CryptoPunks. Well, they decided to do that for tickets and also virtual diecast cars. And I was just sitting there like, are you freaking kidding me? This NFT thing is already basically behind us. Like, a lot of it's crashing really bad, except for some of the top ones. They're still managing to survive right now. But the fact that New Hampshire Motor Speedway decided to do NFTs for their tickets and diecast cars was the silliest thing that I've seen in a very, very long time. NASCAR, just stay the hell away from that. I know you're seeing a lot of cryptocurrencies coming into the sport, but for the love of God, if I start seeing NFTs for tickets and you also stop making diecast cars because you're like, oh, what about the NFT diecast cars? They're not technically diecast because they're not real, but think of the virtual diecast car that you will own virtually. Yeah, it's as stupid as it sounds. So, New Hampshire Motor Speedway, big down for that. Other than that, though, hopefully you guys enjoyed the race. I know my friend Johnny on the track was able to go to the race and got to meet a few drivers, including Eric Amarola and Kyle Larson. Had a lot of fun down there. So, again, just proves why it's so important to go see a race live. You get to see many exciting things, and you also get to meet a few drivers. If you get a pit pass, or even if you just know how to hang out in the right areas, like sometimes the hauler trailers will sometimes have some drivers come in and do some autographs. Trust me, there's a lot of good chances to meet your driver, so make sure to do that. Overall, I give this race kind of in the middle of the 2022 season, maybe even more near the back. Like I said, it was an okay race. If it was a Gen 6 race, I'd say, yeah, this was a really good race, but the amount of exciting races that we have seen with the next gen already, it's hard to compete against that, but still, at least fans are knowing, hey, an okay race is near the back instead of near the front, and that's exactly what we needed with the next gen car. But the biggest thing is, who will be the next winner here in the 2022 season? We'll have to find out, as right now it looks like you need to win it to get in it in the playoffs for the 2022 season. And that will conclude the final results for today's episode, guys. Thank you so much for listening. As far as the Fantasy League did this weekend, you guys absolutely killed it. We did not have one, not two, not three, but 4 people have fantasy teams that scored more than 240 points. 240 plus points. That is unbelievable. The one who scored the most points, almost scoring 250 points, was one more lap with 249 points. Congratulations. You are the winner this week, with Thunder Gun 3 right behind him, just missing it by 1 point, but still an impressive 248 points. And then finishing third, we had CD-Derby Boy 88 RCN with 244 points. I still got to give a shout out to fourth place Hebrew Hammer, scoring 240 points. Guys, thank you so much for joining Fantasy League. You guys are just getting better and better. 13 people with 200 plus points. Very competitive right now, and honestly a lot of fun. If you still want to join that league, you can do so at fantasygames.nascar.com, where we have plenty of people competing right now. I know that the big overall prize is going to be a custom diecast, and I'm hoping to get that near completed here soon. But we may also do another prize for the playoffs, since we had a lot of people join near the middle part of the season. So we may have a prize announcement here coming up soon, but that will be for the final 10 races. Overall, just a lot of fun. And Thundergun 3 as well as Turn Sheen have passed me for the lead. This is tragic situations, but you know what? It is what it is. We still have a lot of races to go, and it's been a lot of fun. So guys, if you want to join that, that's fantasygames.nascar.com. At NASCAR Field Fillers League. 45 members right now. We can always boost it up and have an exciting amount of teams competing in the final 10. If you do want to follow me on social media, make sure to check me out at TikTok at VanillaWafers44, and then at YouTube at Vanilla Wafers, where I post about 5 videos a week. I used to say daily videos, but I've dropped it down just a little bit just to give myself a break. And YouTube, like I said, I'm looking to probably expand on that once again. I just got to figure out which priority I'm going to put more than the other. I always want to keep the podcast near the top, since this is where everything started, so don't worry about that. But if you want to watch daily videos with me, all NASCAR related, you can do so there. If you want to talk to me during the race, you can do so at TylerV33 on Twitter. Most people like to share their opinions with me on how they feel about the podcast, which direction they want to go with it on Twitter, and I greatly do appreciate you guys sharing that opinion with me, and I try to do the best to try to meet those expectations for you guys. So again, if you want to watch videos or keep in touch with me, you can do so on those 3 social media pages. But above all, guys, thank you so much for listening to the best and trying out all the rest. I have been able to fill up the last few remaining minutes of your time, so I'm going to take the car and pull it right on into pit road, collect my last place winnings, and I am out. So you all take care. This has been the Field Filler Podcast.